Welcome to the Reach the Stars podcast, a collection of conversations with cool people who do cool things. Brought to you by Papercraft Miracles. Each week, we'll bring you inspiring stories of persistence, passion, and purpose. With your host, Jonna Willoughby Lohr.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Reach to Stars podcast. I'm your host, Jonna Willoughby Lohr, and today my guests are Z and Chad from Wonderspark Puppets. They are super, super awesome people, very, very creative, amazing parents, amazing people, and I'm so happy to have them here on my show today. Yay!
Hey.
Hi, guys.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks so much.
I just have to put a little plug here that this show would not have been possible were it not for Chad's advice on which camera I should get and which mic I should get and how I should learn how to record things and all sorts of other questions that I randomly Facebook messaged him in the middle of the night when I was trying to figure out how to do this. So thank you. There's a show now because of you. And I'm probably not the only one out there that has a show because of your advice. So.
This is true. I was teaching streaming workshops throughout the spring, like 12 in a row, thanks to the Ibex puppetry company throwing me a couple bucks and aggregating a bunch of puppeteers over. It's been great using my AV experience to help everybody do their thing.
Well, it was certainly appreciated on my end, and I'm sure many other people too. So before we get too crazy, can you guys tell everybody a little bit more about you and where you come from and what's your jam?
You can go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I'm Chad. This is Z. We're married. We're puppeteers. I didn't used to be a puppeteer. I married into the business. Z needed a hand. And I was a filmmaker. I was an AV tech, multimedia tech, a filmmaker, working in New York City in TV and film, and I found that children's theater is much more rewarding. And being a mobile theater, we come into a space, perform, and leave. And I love that. As like an introvert, I love that. Like meeting people first time, everybody's happy to see you. Everybody knows your name. They pay you money. You do your thing. It makes you happy, them happy, and then you leave. And that's kind of been like our business model. And we kind of fall into the mobile puppet troops of history, that have been like going on since at least the 1600s in our specific non-moving mouth hand puppetry style.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm Z, and people often ask, is that your real name? No, but that's what everybody calls me. My real name's Lindsay, but please call me Z. And I've been a puppeteer professionally since 2004. I knew I wanted to be a puppeteer since I was about 18 or 17, actually. And I just kind of took my time finding my way to getting there. But then I ended up going to grad school for puppetry and was there for 3 years at the University of Connecticut. You don't have to go to school for puppetry, but it does help in that I learned a lot in a short amount of time. And then when I left, I made a promise to myself that if I absolutely I made a promise to myself that I would try my hardest to always work in my profession. And I'm really happy to say that I have in a lot of different capacities. I've worked in stop motion animation. I've worked as a puppet wrangler, as a puppet builder, and as a puppeteer. And a puppeteer for live theater shows, for TV shows, for movies, pilots, all sorts of things. So it's just been a really wonderful career for me. And then Chad unexpectedly enjoyed it so much that he decided to come on over. But actually, I shouldn't say unexpectedly because it's super fun. And if you're the type of person that likes a lot of different things, in the arts, if you like building and you like performing and you like story crafting and all these things, then puppetry might be an aspect that you could look into because it really is an amalgamation of all these different areas of the arts put together. And so we've had our puppetry company, Wonderspark Puppets, for a little over 10 years. And we perform shows all throughout New York City in all 5 boroughs. And
we like to say the greater New York metropolitan area,
yes.
which covers like a little creep around like New Jersey and Westchester and Connecticut. But thanks to the pandemic, we've been performing for kids in California and Miami and Madrid and India and streaming our stuff throughout the world. So it's been an unexpected kind of an amazing thing.
Along with some amazing continuing relationships in the New York and Connecticut and New Jersey areas as well that we're really appreciative of. So that's just a little bit of background about us. And then, when I'm not working with Wonderspark Puppets, I'm also the foundation manager for the Jim Henson Foundation, which is the president of the Jim Henson Foundation is Cheryl Henson, which is she's a daughter of Jim Henson. And we give grants to artists creating new works of live contemporary puppet theater. So if you know anybody creating a new show and it's a piece of puppet theater, you should check out hensonfoundation.org and maybe apply for a grant. And then, I think that's it. Stop talking. Okay, great.
So I love that the two of you have all these different creative endeavors and different things. And you're like, I think we should do this. And there's so many artists out there who, like myself too, who have all these different creative outlets. And you're like, how do I make something out of all of this instead of, I have to only do this one thing because that other thing doesn't work as well or doesn't pay the bills or something like that. And I like that you've been able to put together like the filmmaking and like put it all together into putting on these puppetry shows and then figuring out a way to monetize them in a way that supports your family, which is so dope. Like artists that actually make money always makes me happy to even see that happening. Like ever.
It was a bit of a learning curve coming in, but the big question of 2020 for all these established puppeteers was, okay, we figured out what we can charge in our region, right, for like a live performing show. Like you got your travel built in, like workshops. Okay. Like you got like all your little, like microtransactions added on, like here or there, like, oh, maybe I'm going to sell something afterwards. Some puppeteers sell books or puppets or like anything to just kind of like sweeten the deal. Or do multiples, like multiple venues, maybe get a discount. So everybody had figured out that part of their business model. And then when we were all forced to stop streaming live or stop performing and start streaming, it kind of threw everybody for a loop of like, okay, what do we charge now? And what will people pay for? And that was what I think we have an agent, the amazing Christine Cox, who is the incredible producer. Her question too in the agent world is nobody knows what to charge and nobody knows what people will still pay for because it's a different medium. You can't say like your travel costs are gone out the window, right? It's not live. You're performing on a screen, so it doesn't feel the same exact way. You can people in their homes, which is a little bit different and good. Like that's like a positive. But so generally across the board, anecdotally, because I've talked to a lot of puppeteers how to teach them how to stream. It's like generally everyone's like, okay, all right, what you used to charge way up here, and then what you can get away with charging for streaming way down here. You're still charging something because you still have to make a living, right? Especially in America, where we don't get like a lot of art support from our government. So it's kind of been like this struggle of like figuring out like what do we do now in terms of like money. But I'm happy to report that us and a lot of other different puppetry companies made the plunge, figured out the technology, figured out the streaming technology in the software, which is its own hard loop, as John, I'm sure you're well aware of.
Yeah.
And now we're going into 2021 all on the same playing field, on the same level, like, okay, let's do this. We got this. We went through this insane time of 2020, figuring out all this stuff. Now we know what to charge. We know people in our region or around the world, like the money streaming thing. So we're feeling confident going into the new year, feeling like, okay, we've done this. We're experts, maybe. What do you got 2021? Because we've been through it.
Yeah. It's certainly been crazy for me in my business too, especially because pre-COVID, I would say probably 65-70% of my business was all weddings and events. And then it was like, oh, and there's none. So it was kind of a immediate pivot, like, well, shit, now what?
Right.
What do I do to fill that huge gap in orders? And I ended up really pivoting back to what my roots were when I first started doing this in the first place, was making really special things for people to help them connect to people that they love. And I was like, well, that's my jam. And everyone is feeling super far away from everyone else. So I'm just going to try and be in that spot in the market. And it worked really, really well.
That's great.
So far, so good. It's surprisingly been our best year ever by far.
Oh my gosh, amazing.
It's crazy.
You totally made lemonade,
Yeah, and it was nice to be able to kind of get back to the reason that I was doing it in the first place, and think about a lot of that stuff too. It's I started this business right as my mom had died and my dorm burned to the ground with all my stuff in it. And I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with my college major and how I was going to start a business and what I was going to call it. And I ended up making all these artist books to deal with all this trauma that was happening to me. And it gave me a way to share this really difficult, sad experience with other people in a way that didn't make them feel like crap or make them feel awkward. They were like, this is great. I can connect with you and sort of be a part of that and not feel super awkward. And I was like, that's so cool. I want to do that for other people too. So it was nice to kind of be reminded of that and how important it is to connect with people with the arts that way. And that it can, in so many of these situations where I saw this meme the other day that said, everyone out there needs more than anyone else can give. I was like, yes, exactly. So it's nice to kind of, when people are feeling that way, I want to reach out to somebody and let them know that I'm here for you, but I got no spoons. That we can make something that's here you go. This will tide us over until we all have some spoons again. And it's nice.
I know. I totally get that so much. So much. I feel like for us, March, April, and May were the hardest in so many different capacities. And I think that might be true for a lot of people in the arts. But I don't know. Maybe it also depends on your region of the country and of the world, how the virus was affecting your part of the world. For us, being in New York City, at the end of February, at the very beginning of March, I knew that something was going to happen. And I had said to Chad, we need to get ready because it's going to get really bad. And Chad, who's usually a really calm person, was kind of like, all right, slow your roll. It's you've been watching too much news. And I said, you know what? I never watch the news, and I don't. But here's I looked into this, and I think that we need to be prepared, and it would make me feel a lot more calm if we could just be prepared, and that way, if we
and when your spouse says, and it would make me feel better, and I would love you more if you just let me have this. You say, yes. Okay, Go ahead. Buy all the toilet paper.
And so, no, I mean, so yeah, the next couple days, Chad would, when he went out to get a couple things, he'd also get 6 boxes of macaroni and cheese and a thing of ramen. And, and he sent me a picture the first day he did it while I was at work. And I wrote him back and I said, I feel seen. And so, and I kept trying to talk to people to say for your listeners who have never met me, I'm one of the most optimistic people you will ever meet. I believe in the good of humanity and that everything's going to turn out okay. So it is very weird for me to be things are dire when nothing was dire at that moment, and there was no messaging of things being dire. And so I was trying to talk to other people and say, listen, I really think that you guys need to get prepared. Like, we just bought his and hers NyQuil and DayQuils because I think that maybe there won't be enough medicine at the store. And people were looking at me like, you're crazy. And I'm not saying all of this to be like, I was right, but also at the same time,
I was right.
well, I was, but I am saying this to help people to understand, so that when things went down on March 13th and it became very evident that everything was going to be really bad for at least a while, when we started on the week of March 17th, it was Tuesday, March 17th was when we started streaming and doing workshops. And then that Friday was when we did our first live, free, on Facebook streamed show. The reason that we were able to, as they were saying at the time, pivot so fast is because on the 13th, that whole weekend, we were planning. And Chad came in, he said, everything's getting canceled. What do we do? All of our shows, everything from March, April, May, it's all getting canceled. And I said, nothing is going to happen probably for a year. So we need to plan right now for to only perform online, and we need to make it that we are the ones who can do that we can provide a service, and we need to stay relevant, and we need to be able to, tap into what the collective vibe is. And that vibe was, I don't know what to do with my kids right now, because everybody was freaking out because all of a sudden schools were closed and nobody had a plan. And what do I do with my kids? And is everybody going to be okay? And are people dying? I don't know. And so what we were able to provide, it also for ourselves too, was a sense of joy, a sense of normalcy, and a sense of consistency for many months, that we would be here and that we could be your go-to spot for joy and whimsy and love and laughter. And we were able to provide that for so many families and for so many kids throughout those months and going into the summer as well.
March through August, we streamed until through the summer, as your listeners may know, because we all lived through this together. It was crazy, and we were in Queens in the middle of the. Now it seems like nothing at all. Like, to lose 20,000 people in a month seems like, oh, whatever, right? But it was like unheard of, and we were just scared to death to leave our apartment for anything at all. And if you got groceries delivered, it was like you had to hose it down with alcohol swabs and wipes and everything. So we used what we have, and thankfully the type of puppetry that we do works really well with this kind of screen. If my mentor Wawa does these huge shows, big onstage shows with tons of different puppeteers and dancers and stuff, and her stuff will never translate onto this little screen outside of just like showing a video. But we can do live shows because our booth is basically a rectangle, right? So we were one of the lucky ones. We had the equipment because we were filmmakers. We had the know-how, and we could pivot early. And then once we had our consistent schedule up, then we started to tell everybody, okay, this is what you need to do. We partnered with Ibex Puppetry, Heather Henson's company, to teach streaming workshops, and like hundreds and hundreds of puppeteers showed up. And it just became this thing of just like, all right, once you get a leg up, you got to help the next guy up, right? Yeah. I don't know if that's...
Send the elevator back down.
There you go.
So that somebody else can come back up.
Yeah, so we definitely had an advantage coming in because we had the know-how to stream and stuff. But at the same time, we were so sad that early on, because of how tough it is, Jonna, you know this, to figure out like streaming software. And sometimes it just doesn't work. Like even today, setting up for this, I was like, why does my audio sound so terrible? Trying to connect to Zoom.
You're like, can you hear me now?
Yep, exactly. Just like, I just turn it off, turn it on, it just seemed to work. But like so many of our peers gave up early on. The first month, everyone was like, okay, let's try this thing. Let's go. Let's stream puppet shows, and sometimes you just can't get it to work no matter what. So many of our contemporaries just gave up and were like, I'm just going to file for unemployment, and just hunker down. But I'm so happy for all the ones that kept with it, stuck with it, that are still streaming to this day.
Yeah, because when this is over, I think people will reflect back on who they continued to have connections with, or who they made connections with during this time to help them through. And I would like to think that for a lot of families, especially in those early months, that we were a touchstone for a lot of people. And also, it was a sense of stability for our family as well, even though it was crazy. I mean, we were doing one free workshop every single day. We were trying to homeschool our kids, and we were performing shows out of our apartment. And
out of our tiny 2-bedroom Queens apartment where the stage takes up all the free space in one room.
It's just comical. And right before the show would start, we would tell the boys, we have two boys, ages 5 and 7. And at that time, they were ages 4 and 7. Right?
Yeah. Barely 7.
Yeah. So we would say, okay, Daddy's about to perform in 5 minutes. So everybody go to the bathroom, get your flushes out now. And then you have to go in the other room and you can watch something with headphones on. And then you have to be silent. No laughing. Because it's such a small apartment. And the cat, we would be like, Cat, you need to go nap. Usually she was good. So, I mean, it's just all these things that you had to be thinking about. And we kept trying different spots in the apartment for the stage. And we finally found a spot where if the sun was really bright, it wasn't going to mess up the lighting and everything. But
so I have a question.
Okay.
And Jonna, this could be for you too. So have you, and maybe listeners, maybe this is food for thought, right? But so we all went through a very traumatic time. Mm-hmm. Everybody has a story, right? It's just like 9/11. Everybody has a story. Where were you, March 2020, et cetera? Have you processed your trauma yet? Have you come through to the other side? Have you found what works for you? And are you sticking with it?
It's funny because fairly early in the pandemic, I took one of those personality tests. The personality behavior type, the Enneagram test. And not surprising, I'm a 7, the enthusiast. And it gave me all these insights into what my personality type does when I'm stressed. And my personality type will do anything at all to avoid feeling pain, fear, and loss. Whatever, I will distract myself in any number of ways. So when I am stressed out and afraid about things, I will start many, many, many new projects and continuously look forward to the future and just start doing stuff because it might turn into something cool. And for those of you who don't know, the reason that we all know each other is because they went to college with my husband. And he is a 5 in the Enneagram, and he is the ultimate planner, and he needs to have all his ducks in a row. And I know you guys are laughing because you know him.
And that's also
our
us.
Dynamic
that's
too.
Also us too.
Yeah. But he needs to have if I don't have all my materials and all the funding and the emotional energy and the time to complete something, I'm not going to start doing it. Because he's I can't get into it if I don't have the right resources to bring it to fruition. And meanwhile, I'm oh, cool idea. Let's see what happens. And it the way that my stress response is to just take more on, and his is shut it all out. I got nothing. So the whole pandemic has just really taught both of us a lot about the type of people that we are. And me being a total extrovert, it's been really, really, really hard for me to be stuck at home with him, who's a total introvert and could be happy as hell if he talked to 4 people in a year. And especially if one of them was not me. I have spent a lot of time on Zoom doing poetry readings with other extroverted poets that I know, and just whatever I can do to sort of feel still involved in a creative community that's not just me and my couple of staff at my studio. And I couldn't even have staff at my studio for the first couple months anyway. And it was, I don't know. I mean, being totally immersed in my work has certainly made me feel awesome, which I'm really glad to have work that makes me feel awesome. Have a studio that's in my house, so I didn't have to go anywhere to go to work. And the first month, he was laid off. And since he technically owns a business, we weren't even sure if he was going to be able to qualify and get any unemployment because he never had before. And my assistant who was working with me in the beginning of the pandemic, she got another job pretty much like immediately doing online course coordination for a college. And I was like, talk about job security, you go take that job. I definitely cannot give you that kind of salary or that kind of job security much as I want to. And so for the first at least month and a half, I was back to like me running my business by myself with no staff at all. And we got really busy because all the flower shops were closed and we make paper flowers. And people were having funerals with a couple of people and saying like, there aren't even any flowers at Wegmans. Like we can't get flowers anywhere. They're all done. And any of the flower shops that were still open with like really minimal staff, it was usually like one, maybe two people there. They weren't trying to go buy a ton of fresh flowers because they were like, I don't know if we have enough staff to like put them together to sell them to people or if people are going to buy them. And with fresh flowers, like they can't just keep them around indefinitely hoping people are going to buy them. So most of them were just closed. And so I literally had blisters on my fingers from making funeral flowers in March and April. It was insane. Wow. Like by myself, I was working, he was hanging out with the kids and my stepmom was coming over to watch the kids. So he actually had it pretty good, He's like, once he started getting unemployment, he was working on the building, he had childcare, and I was just working all day. I was like, you got it easy, man. And I was working really late. I was working probably till 12:30, 1 o'clock, 2 a.m, like almost every day. I lost like 20 pounds. I was not eating a lot because I was just working my face off. And I felt really good about it because I like to be that kind of worker. It like makes me feel fulfilled to be under pressure like that. If it's something that's like, I know that I can come up with something and deliver something to somebody on time that's going to make them happy and make them feel good about whatever their situation is. And so I didn't mind doing that. And I was glad to fill a need for people. And to do that with something that I love was like, what else is there in the world than to like know that the thing that makes you really, really super happy more than anything else is also useful for other people. Even in a pandemic that like, fancy schmancy handmade art is still necessary in a pandemic. Like people like, I need that in my life. So I did a lot of work. I did a lot of working. And it's just been crazy. There was just a ton of things that I had that were on my someday I'm going to get to that list. Like upgrading all of the shipping estimation capabilities on my website and making sure that all the stuff I had for sale was actually had pictures taken and was uploaded on the website so people could actually buy it and, figuring out a way to ship.
What was your solution for that? Because that came up online yesterday. Somebody was like, okay, what do I use for shipping estimation? And everybody had a bunch of different answers.
So my website is on Squarespace and they do have some shipping stuff like built into it. And I had been like avoiding upgrading to the highest level of the commerce that would do the shipping thing better. And I tried to say like, okay, well, if you order this, then like, this is the shipping. I had like individual shipping prices on each item that I put there. And it would make it really weird if somebody was buying like a package of stationery and something that couldn't ship flat. And it's like the shipping would be like $75 for like 2 items because it would think that I have to ship them in like 2 totally different boxes because it's like my shipping estimates were not understanding that you could put both of those in the same box. So I just bit the bullet and I was like, people are going to be buying stuff on my website and that is going to be a thing. I'm not going to be doing craft shows. Like that's where people are going to go. And so I upgraded to the highest level of it and I took all the effort and I weighed all the items in my studio. I had like a food scale, not even a good postal scale, but like a crappy food scale, but I weighed everything and I measured everything. And it took a couple of days to like really do it all properly and list it all on the site. But I've actually had more sales through my website since March than I did between 2016 and March.
Amazing.
Jeez.
Amazing.
So
But
it was
that
worth
is a
doing.
testament. That's a testament to self-investment, to taking the moment and saying, you know what, now is the time to jump in and to say that I'm worth it, and that this is important enough that it's going to take everything to the next level, even if it's more work right now. So good for you. That's great.
I did a lot of that, like, even if it's more work right now, it's worth it this year for sure.
Yes.
I got involved with this organization called ShiftCo. That it's an international organization for conscious companies. And it's like you pay monthly to be in it. And then there's curated coaching, business coaching, that's like specifically designed for whatever level you're at in your business and what you really need to focus on most. And you meet with a mentor that helps you kind of decipher what thing you really like. If you work real hard on this aspect, you will get to the level that you want to get to. And so I signed up to do that. And the first thing that they did was this what if up brainstorming session with a bunch of the other members to help people figure out how they could pivot their businesses to where people would need them. Like what things do you do, and how can we come up with ideas that you could use those skills to provide a service for people who need them. And that's how somebody came up with like, hey, what about flowers for funerals? And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. So I started like contacting all these funeral homes and like letting people know, like if there's people who need flowers and they can't find them, like send them over to me and stuff like that. So that was really helpful. And so I've been doing their coaching programs and working really hard on getting authentic demand for my brand. That's not me outselling to people, but me providing help to people and information and like networking when the ways you can during the pandemic and stuff like that. And then figuring out ways to kind of get your name out there. So when people are like, hey, I need something for this, somebody else is going to be like, oh, I know somebody, this chick, and they'll tag you in posts and things like that. So I did a bunch of that stuff. And then I did a course on differentiation and like figuring out exactly what my business does that nobody else does. And that's where it was just so great to really get back into like the heart of why I wanted to do this when I was 19 in the first place.
It's amazing.
And I was like, man, that's so awesome. And like, sure, we'll keep doing weddings and events when they start happening in the future. But I've definitely like, my jam is being able to kind of talk to somebody for 15 minutes and find out how I can take a story from them about the person they want to give something to. I can make something that as soon as the person sees it, they're going to know exactly who it's from. They're going to know what it means, and they're going to be like, wow, that's awesome. And that's my jam. And so it's cool to, I don't know, kind of get back to that and just see like, it's so special. And I love doing that. Like that's my, that's my ideal customer, is like doing things like that for people. So it's been really cool to find, I don't know, get back to the fun value of doing that. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that really answers your question, but
I'm not. This isn't a quiz or a test.
Yeah, there's no right answer.
It's something that one of our friends, Lindsay Ebermeyer Smith, said early on that really resonated with me. She did a few times where she gathered her thoughts and gave like a 60-minute kind of like a sermon on YouTube and talked about like the trauma of what we're living through. I mean, we were like I'm trying not to focus on how crazy things were, because like we lost one of our neighbors. This mother died. This mother with this little girl who goes to the school across the street. Like the weekend of Mother's Day, it was like everyone in this country is going to have somebody they know personally who has died. And I feel like we started out as like, okay, how can we be a service to people? But we also kind of figured out, like, when school came back into session in the fall, we're like, okay, and nobody needs this anymore. Now we're gonna step back. It's okay to like step back and be like, think about like, now what can we do now? And take some minutes, because we were seeing like we were offering these free shows for months, every single week, and like all this free stuff and all this interest in our brand. We're sowing the seeds for tomorrow, right? But at some point, you gotta, if it's not working out, you gotta like pivot, figure out. So now we're kind of, we've gone from offering all this free content over the summer when people really needed it to we're back to kind of like just reaching out to organizations, birthday parties, schools, libraries. We'll take streaming, and Chabads, like the Jewish community, who in the summer and fall, we're like, where are you guys? Where's our people? Nobody wanted to stream a show. Now everybody's down to stream a show. So I feel like knowing when to like stop and reassess and then pivot, I feel like out of anything has been one of the big learning things of this whole crazy moment of history.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would just say, Chad gets to do Wonderspark full time. So that's like a gift in a sense. I have a lot of jobs, and I feel like the thing that it's like my life's work will be how to channel the enthusiast personality that you and I both share, but then also be kind to myself and let myself plan things in a sense that are achievable and actually finish things. Mm-hmm. And I think that, I'm in a place right now where that feels really possible. I think that also the DIY workshops where everything was live, because at first people were on the fence in March and April. Do we pre-record and then share things, or do we do it live? And I had said to Chad, live. It all should be live all the time, as much as possible, live. And I didn't even have like a full, really good reason for it that I could verbally explain. I just knew that was who we were as a brand, that we're live performers. And we didn't start with the live show, the live puppet show. We started March 17th that week on a Tuesday with the DIY workshops. And then we built up to live shows every Friday. And what was nice about the DIY workshops was that once we were done with the workshop, like it was done. Like it was a completed thing. So each time we did a DIY workshop and we live streamed, it was like, oh, you completed something, and it was like a momentum that was building. And also this sense of normalcy, even though it was crazy, it was like, well, we had a schedule, and we also had performing partners that we hired to do certain days of the workshops. And we did 100 days of workshops straight in the pandemic. And I just have this memory when you talk about trauma and like how you've dealt with your trauma. I don't know when I'm going to actually deal with all of it. I think I'm just constantly dealing with it. And also just like being here, which we're not in New York City now. We left New York City temporarily on June 1st, came out and are living with Chad's parents in Western New York, which has been wonderful, and we're super thankful. But there's also the stress of, not being in your own home. And I think that there's just like a constant dealing of everything. And when I think back now to those first 3 months of living through all that in New York City, it feels like another life. And then anything pre-pandemic feels like a totally other life. Mm-hmm. Like I feel so separated from my New York City life, and then also from anything before March 13th. I feel so separated from that right now. So I'm really looking forward to getting back to that.
Are you going to once we're back in the apartments, and everything's normal and we've settled and the kids have new bunk beds because they grew out of their crib beds, are you going to have a moment where you like wake up in the middle of the night, you're like, ooh, and look around, and it'll be like if nothing have changed, like everything was back the way it was, and was it all a dream?
No, I don't think so. I mean, what's strange about being out here is that every morning that I wake up, I have to remind myself what's happening. And I've been out here so long, you would think that I wouldn't have to do that, but I do. Every single morning, wake up, and then the first thing I do is say, where am I? what's happening. There's a pandemic. Your kids are okay. Here we go. And then I have to convince myself to get out of bed. So
I had no idea. See, this is great. We're breaking through right now. Wow.
Yeah.
That
Meanwhile,
sounds crazy.
I wake up in the morning when the kids force me to wake up because there's no way that I'm going to get out of bed until they make me. And even then, I'm like, you guys can eat cereal bars? Cool. Like, you can get a yogurt out? Cool. Like, you're old enough to do that? Awesome. And I don't know. It's pre-pandemic. I could go to sleep whenever I want to. Like, obviously within reason, but like, I'd be like, oh, I'm going to go to bed now. And I would go and lie down and go to sleep. But now that is a thing of the past. And my brain just will not shut the hell up ever. And so I have to be like completely and totally exhausted before I'm going to go to sleep. So I'm like up working. I'm like, well, if I'm going to be up anyway, I might as well go work. So I'm in my office after the kids go to sleep till like 1:30, 2 o'clock. And then I'll just be like reading on my phone until I'm like about to drop it on the floor. Then I'm like, okay, maybe now I can go to sleep for like 5 hours and then get up and do virtual school, which is my favorite thing ever. No.
Do your kids go to public school?
Yeah, Vern goes to public school, but all the public schools in Buffalo are closed officially for in-person learning until maybe February 1st. We'll see.
Okay.
They're supposed to start back 2 days a week in the actual building in February. So.
Mm-hmm. Were there any? Our school, our micro school, had like one incident where a kid contracted COVID. They say like outside of the school system, but then we realized, oh wait a second, we have a preschooler who is positive, and like, and we had to like freak out about that for a second. For the kids who were doing in school. Did the Buffalo public school system have a moment like that where a pod or a class or something was like, they had to shut it down or, everybody out, anything like that?
Well, I mean, the Buffalo public schools have been closed for in-person learning since March.
Oh, wow.
Like when all the other schools in the other counties were opening and like having kids in the school, the Buffalo public schools were like, we have way too many students who need to be transported on a school bus. Like there's no way that like they could make it fair for parents who didn't have transportation. Wow. And to get kids to and from school safely. Like they were just like, we don't have the infrastructure for that. They already didn't have enough school buses and bus aides and bus drivers for the kids who were going to school before the pandemic. I mean, so they were like, there's no way that we can cut the amount of kids in half that are on a bus and still manage to get all the kids to school. So they like couldn't figure it out. It's totally fine if they want to come on. It's a laid back.
You want to come?
You came in. You might as well come over.
On the podcast.
They're like, no, I don't want to.
You got an invader.
This is.
What's up, bud?
Finn.
It's been a while since you've seen.
How old are you?
Miss Jonna.
5.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Jonna is
upstairs.
Vernon and Thurgood's mom. Remember when we would go to Buffalo and play at their house in the driveway outside a little bit?
They have really cool toys.
Mm-hmm.
Really,
and
really
a drum
cool
set
toys.
in their house.
Way too many toys at this point.
Remember the drum set?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Bye.
Good to see you.
Love you.
Oh, man, it has been really crazy that.
You don't play with me.
You got
it.
Just. I never wanted to be a homeschooling parent, like never. Mm-hmm. And the times that I was teaching in schools, doing teaching artist stuff, I never even had to give out grades. And one day of working with kids all day, and I was like, done. Like I could do it one day a week, and I'd be like, I need a nap. Like I can't. I don't know what it is about just being around kids in general, but like little babies, not a problem. I'll chill with a little baby all day, but like kids steal my energy like instantaneously. And so I was like, there's no way that I could be planning lessons and then, like making kids actually do them and still maintain my sanity as a person. And so once they were like, yeah, and now you're going to be doing like virtual school. And I'm like, Vern's 5, so he's not going to sit He's not going to sit at the kitchen table and pay attention to his Zoom class without me sitting right there with him and making him do what he's supposed to be doing. So at least, it's easier now that the teacher is there on the iPad and like making him do stuff. And they have, books that they sent home that, they're like, we're on page 25 and he's actually like doing the things on paper. It's not all like computerized, but it's certainly easier doing that than it was when they just sent home a packet of stuff for him to do. And I was just supposed to like make him do a certain amount of it every day. I was like, that's not happening. Like my kid is going to watch a lot of TV and that's what's happening because I cannot keep running my business full time with very little child care and doing that at the same time. But
I know.
Once we started the official, in person via virtual school, my stepmom she watches the kids for us 4 days a week, which is amazing. Like couldn't be doing any of this without her, but she doesn't want to do school with him, which I get. So normally when she's here, I get 32 hours a week to do any work while we have childcare. And now there's at least 12 of those hours that I have to sit at the table and do school with him.
I completely relate to that. Completely. That is my mother-in-law as well. She will do school with them when they're not doing the virtual learning because she was a kindergarten teacher for most of her life. But she just doesn't want any part of the computer or the virtual learning at all. And so most of the days in the mornings, I'm sitting at the table with the boys, and we have 2 boys who are virtual learning at the same time in the same pod, but at different levels because I have a 2nd grader and a kindergartner. So, it has been a challenge, but I wrote this in an email to somebody today. I feel like we have continued to try to do the best and make the best of the situation every step of the way. And, I hope that we'll all look back on this and feel like, we did the best we could and everybody got through it okay. And it is definitely way better being here for our family than it was being in New York City. And even though we miss New York City terribly, and so many of our friends are in New York City, and our life is in New York City. Just in terms of stability, work, our stress level, and just what we were able to actually do work-wise, it made so much more sense for us to come out here.
And we want to thank the Springville Center for Arts.
Yes, and Springville Center for the Arts.
So say it out.
Oh, it's not Springville Center for the Arts?
That's correct.
Oh,
I just found out this recently. It's Springville Center for Arts, and Tracy said, "I know."
Okay.
Tracy, who is our main contact, is an amazing woman. We started a residency in one of their buildings because one of the great things that they've done is taken over several buildings that repurposed a church, repurposed a karate dojo. they got all these little spaces, and now they've turned this abandoned building into like a bakery and an arts cafe, and they got it going on. It's awesome. So we have been in this space broadcasting. We turned this abandoned, moldy office closets space. No, it's true, and they'll be the first ones to tell you that it was into a streaming studio. We've been there, and this continuing awesome residency. Mm-hmm. So thanks, SCA and Seth and Tracy and all the amazing people who make it happen.
Yeah, huge thank you to them, because when we first came out here to your parents' house, they didn't have the internet at their house. So how are we going to be able to work? Like, the kids could play in the forest and play outside, and we didn't have to worry about things, because you have to understand that even for us to take out the garbage from our apartment, we had to wear a mask just to leave the door and go out into the hallway to take out the garbage. And I mean, it's like the stress level was just so high for so long. And I think that, friends of mine who have stayed have told me that right around the time that we left is when things really started to get better. Mm-hmm. But when we left, it was like at the end of like things being just so hard. It was springtime.
I mean, there was like a big protest and arrests, and like
the day we left.
The day we left was the day that the Black Lives Matter protest were exploding.
Yeah.
We were like, oh no, we want to. Oh, goodbye, I guess. You know.
So sorry.
Like, we be out there in our masks right now.
We've been fighting for that cause for a long time.
Right.
But we just
So we brought it to Springville, which was its own interesting thing.
We were part of a protest here in the tiny village of Springville, and that was great. And we've been continuing to do what we can to to just live. We're just trying to live, but also to bring some joy to people too. And then in the midst of all of this too, I got to work on Sesame Street as well. So, and that was crazy.
You're like, I'm just going to throw this out there. Like, psh, by the way, I'm on Sesame Street. What? Okay, tell us more about this.
Well, the thing with entertainment and stuff was you audition for something and then you don't hear about it for months. And so last November 2019, I auditioned for a part for a possible podcast that they were thinking about putting together. But then I didn't hear anything for months. And then sometime in the spring, they followed up and said, we would like to hear a little bit more from you. Can you take these notes and retry again and send us some more clips? So I did that. Then you don't hear anything again for months. And you just have to keep living your life and hoping that somebody liked it. And then one day I found out I got the good news that I had gotten the part. And the part is for Foley, who is the host of a new podcast on Audible for Sesame Street called the Sesame Street Podcast with Foley and Friends. And so it's her podcast, and she brings on all of her friends from Sesame Street to interact and talk about all sorts of things that especially preschool kids, but kids of, young kids would like to hear and talk about. And if your kids are looking for a break from some screen time, but you still want to keep them entertained, this is a great option. Or if you're in the car, this is also a really great option for car trips. They're shorter episodes, only about between like 15 and 18 minutes long. They're very, very sweet. So if you haven't checked that out, go to Audible and check that out. There's 15 episodes, and we recorded them all in the basement of the Springville Center for the Arts space during our residency while we were here in Springville. And so that was like in the midst of everything else happening, but it was also a shining light for me, because that was one of my dreams, is to like work for Sesame Street. And I've gotten to do a couple of things here or there, but this is the biggest opportunity I've had with them. And, I'm just so thankful. So you should check it out. It's super awesome.
That is so cool. We'll definitely have links to all that stuff in the show notes.
Thank you.
And before we run out of time, now that I could talk to you guys all day, I want to do our 5-question time at the end.
Oh, yeah.
Get ready, Chad. Get ready.
Okay.
All right, it's lightning round. Okay. All right, here we go. All right.
It need to be like a super lightning round, but it could if you want to. Okay. The first one is, tell me about an experience that shaped who you are today.
Which one? I mean,
There's one in particular where, like, after that one moment, you're like, damn, everything is different. Aside from March 17th.
I mean, we learned so many lessons our first year. I have a detailed, thick journal of our first year working together as puppeteers. And one of I think the best stories, because we're always looking for stories in podcasts, right? So I will tell you a story. I don't think we've told this on our podcast at all. So the perm disaster story.
No, don't tell that story.
No?
No.
Well, now I have to.
No, you don't.
Yeah, we do.
No.
Why not?
Oh my God, I want to know it's
It's a learning moment.
I don't know.
So
So
this taught us a lot of things, but I'm sure as business people, as independent business people, you have learned this too. You have your own disaster story. Everybody gets one. So we had just started working working It's not bad. It's not bad at all. It's not a bad story. It's a good story.
Which story are you telling?
The one, the men, the men praying story.
Okay.
That disaster.
Okay.
I don't know which one you're thinking about. So we got a gig It was our first. We've only been performing together for a few months, and we decided one year we got a gig for our first ever birthday party show in the basement of a synagogue. It went super well. We did not tell the client. It was our first time ever performing that show or getting paid for performing any of the things, but it went super well. Because you can never tell people it's your first time, right? You just go through with confidence. And she said, "Oh wow, you guys should come back and do a perm show. You guys would do awesome, a hand puppet perm." We're like, "Yeah, we're gonna build it." We booked it, right? We also at the same time got a request because then we started to put on our website, okay, we got a perm show. Perm's coming soon. All right, here it is. We got a couple months to prepare for perm. I think literally 2 months. So we got an email from a caterer who's saying, "Hey, we're having a perm party. I'm a caterer for it. I will hire you guys. Come on in and perform your perm show." We said, "Great, awesome. Where is it?" "It's in this fancy building on the Upper West Side." Awesome, great. So the first gig did not turn out. We had at that time I was not including the day of the week and the date in my emails with clients, and that totally bit everybody in the butt because they were like, "Oh no, I get this phone call saying like, 'Hey, where are you guys? You're supposed to be performing right now.'" And I said, No. We said the 17th. And she's like, "Oh, I meant Sunday the 18th. It was the day before." Whatever. Anyway, that didn't turn out. So we go to the second one booked by the caterer the next day, and we get there, and so number one, never go into a gig without having spoken to the birthday mom or the person in charge. Never go through a third party ever was the lesson, because we're like, where's the caterer? Where's the guy who is supposed to pay us?
Well, you can go through everybody? A third party, but you have to then have contact with the person who it's for. Yeah. So we show up to the right address, to the right place. We're in the spot, and nobody knows us. Nobody knows what we do. We're looking for our contact, the caterer. There's nowhere to be found. We decide to set up because we're like, we're there. Sure, why not? And we talk to somebody who is mostly in charge, and everybody kind of figures it out. Then we're supposed to perform. We're waiting. We wait like at least 30 minutes to perform. Waiting in our stage. We have a puppet stage that we have set up, and we are standing inside the puppet stage. We're hiding, basically. Haven't spoken to the caterer, don't know where he is, but this is an event. It's like a small event. Perm is kind of like Jewish Halloween, where all the kids dress up. This is an amazing story of Purim, and we were putting on our own special version of that story. It's traditional for Jews to do the retelling of the story in fun ways. And we had been told it was a very small room, so we decided to not bring our microphone and our speaker because it's more stuff to carry on the subway. Also, this is our first year performing. We learned so much that year. Yeah, so that was another huge mistake. Was even though we knew it was a small room, we left that stuff at home. We should have just brought it. And then if we needed it, and then not used it if we didn't. We would have used it, right? But it wouldn't have saved us, quite honestly. So, so there's kids everywhere. They're in costume. There's very questionable thing happening with some of the adults, so that I will not mention at this time. But we were shocked at some of the behavior happening. Not the only time. It was not our vibe. I'm just gonna say that it was not our vibe. Yeah. It was and it was all a little chaotic, which always parties are, and we're happy to be a part of that kind of energy most of the time. So then it was finally time for us to perform. Finally time. Okay. And so we got the music person to stop playing their music loudly. We got the kids. It's a very echoey space to sit down. We're like, okay, this is it. We're going to do this puppet show for you guys. Awesome. And the mom in charge, Alpha Mom, comes over and is like, wait a second. Actually, there's a bit of an issue because the men are going to start praying. Is that going to be a problem? And we're like, no, that's fine. Because I grew up Episcopalian. I'm like, people pray you can pray anywhere, right? It's not a big deal. We're in this room where like 15% of the room is kids' toys and us. And then 75% of the room is a tent, like one of those big canvas outdoor tents for like 30 people set up indoors.
with plastic tables and chairs set up like they're going to have like a banquet, like they're going to eat there.
And I'm Jewish, and Chad is not Jewish,
Yes.
but I was raised like we would go to temple a couple times a year. We lit some Hanukkah candles. Here's some latkes. Love you, love you. And that's it. Like, I didn't have a clue, and Chad definitely didn't have a clue.
I had no idea what to expect. I knew that some people were wearing wigs, but I didn't at that time know why.
There were a lot of things we didn't know, and now we do know, and now we're very much entrenched in the Jewish culture of New York City.
Absolutely.
But, yes.
And some of our favorite people that book us often are very Orthodox, I would say.
Yes,
So
we
learned
all of the factions of the Jews of New York City, and they love us. This was our first Purim show.
This is trial by fire. We got burned. So as we start to do the intro to our show, to the 15 kids who are sitting very nicely on the floor, the men start to come in, and these are Orthodox Jewish men, so they got the full thing. They got the curls in the hair, long beards. Some of them, they're all wearing black and white.
They're traditional
Jewish garb. But when you think of like the caricature of like a Jewish person, they're wearing all the stuff.
Yes.
Which the names for the stuff I actually forget.
But sure. But anyway, so you can visualize it. They come in, and then we're like, great, they're going to go pray. And we're thinking like praying, like quiet praying. No. It was like loud chanting praying right next to where we were. Next.
Full volume. 30 men praying together in Hebrew, super loud in this tiny space with us trying to tell the kids, okay, all right, now the story of Purim, we're going to put on this puppet show,
With no
okay?
mics.
But you got to be quiet. You got to stay seated.
No, it was a mess, just a mess. And then finally, at one point, the mom.
We started the show.
Go ahead.
We started the show, and we start doing the show, and this is like a show that I wrote.
Oh no!
That I thought would be good.
So
so we're like,
we rewrote the show after this.
yeah, absolutely. So I could tell the show was bombing, not just because the kids couldn't hear, but because I was trying to write a story for a culture that I knew little about. So, there it is.
All sorts of bad situations happening all at once.
So the men are praying super loud. The kids can't hear us. And then at some point, because at this point we were still performing on our knees with our hands above our heads, we can't see the audience.
No, we didn't have a scrim.
We have changed that sense. We can see the full view of the audience, even though we're still hidden now. So anyway, at one point, Alpha Mom sticks her head into the back of the
Call
booth.
her Alpha Mom.
What am I supposed to call her? She was the woman in charge.
The woman in charge.
Sticks her head in and says, the kids aren't paying attention. Nobody can hear you.
I think it's time to wrap it up.
That's right. I think it's time to wrap it up.
I think it's time to wrap it up. And I was like, thank God. Because it was such a disaster. And we basically just went, the end.
That's right. And then we got up and no one was looking or paying attention. And I kind of felt relieved. And then we started to...
And then we left.
Wait, no. Because we still hadn't gotten paid.
God, oh, my God. It's
so
just the ongoing
you're
situation.
breaking down the stage, and I'm looking for our contact. And I'm going onto the website on my phone, being like, please, can there be a picture of this caterer so I can figure out who he is? Finally, we asked the woman in charge, hey, have you seen so-and-so? And she's like, oh, yeah, they're over there. Let me get them. And he comes over, and it was like embarrassing, like, hey, thanks for having us. Oh, yeah, it didn't work out. Well, all right. Yeah. Finally, he hands us a wad of cash, and we get out of there. And
we didn't speak on the subway on the way home. We did not speak to each other. We just sat with all of our gear, staring straight ahead, not speaking. I think we got home, and I was like, we're never doing that show ever again.
No, but thankfully we hadn't any other bookings, and thankfully we didn't have we actually didn't perform it. Like the first gig that just fell through, I was like, thank goodness that didn't work out. We would have embarrassed ourselves a little bit. So the Purim disaster story. We learned so many things all at once.
Yeah.
Right? And then the next year, Purim, we did a different show. We knocked it out of the park. We always brought our sound equipment, and we knew what questions to ask. Yeah. Everybody gets one. Disaster.
We learned a lot more about our audience.
Yes.
Like we just learned a lot. So I guess, Chad got the first question. There you go. Okay, that was a long answer. Sorry, Jonna.
That's fine. Okay, number 2. When you feel defeated or overcome, what do you tell yourself to keep going?
Well, It depends, but there's a lot of things that happen in my brain. It's mostly like, all right, come on, here we go. Or even like lately, I've been trying to get better about responding to emails in a more timely manner, or responding in the way that I would want to be responded to, because I don't like writing. And so, and then when I do write, it's, I always have this feeling of like, I'm not saying it the way that I would want to, or maybe it's not going to be interpreted in the way that I need it to be. And then therefore I get stunted by this like lack of perfection. And then the email never gets written and it never gets sent. And then people think I don't love them. So lately it's been, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to get done. And, but for day to day, it's, get out of bed. Get out of bed. That's the hardest thing in the morning for me sometimes is starting the day. And then once I get momentum going, then it's like easier. But the beginning is hard for me.
I hear that. Yeah, last year I it's funny because I always try to like keep a planner and keep a journal, and I can always tell when I'm getting like too stressed and too overwhelmed, because that's the first thing to go right out the window is like actually having a plan for what I'm doing. And last October in 2019, I started doing this habit tracker. And one of the things that I was like, I want to start a habit of not looking at my phone until I have coffee. And I was so good at it last year. And now it's just like, I wake up and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do some scrolling before I get up. It's like, no, I'm not going to get up and I'm not going to get the coffee. And until I can hear the kids like breaking stuff in the other room. And I'm like, all right, I guess I should get up now.
Yeah. But I guess if I was to boil it down, it would be just start. Just start.
Yes, I agree. Okay, number 3. It's kind of goes along with number 1, but it was tell me about a way you overcame a failure or a mistake and what you learned from it.
Oh, I feel like we answered that.
Well, we talked about the mistake, but getting over it was always learn, like all the time. Every single audience for us is a way to learn more about like yourself or how you perform the show. Every time we do the show is a chance to perfect it in some way or get it better. Or if you make a mistake, sometimes mistakes are the best ways to figure out something new, to put something like to imbue something with new life. Is to make a mistake and kind of figure your way around it, or like, oh man, that totally didn't work, but oh man, maybe I'll try this instead. So sometimes making a mistake is the best way to kind of like to love what you do, continue to love what you do, because otherwise you're just a machine, right?
Yeah.
And it means you're trying things, right? I mean, like the best way to learn is by making mistakes, but then getting better and learning from them. So we've learned a lot.
There's this old joke about every puppeteer has one show that they perform for 50 years, right? Which is true. It's true, and it's true for us too. But we're constantly evolving and constantly getting better. And I was saying this earlier in the pandemic, but like even if you take like baby steps every single day towards your goal, even if your goal seems insurmountable, like just take one little step each day. Like we'll learn one new thing, try one new thing, and like eventually you will get there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's cool. I had a guy on the show a couple of weeks ago who's a hypnotist from the UK, and he has like a stage hypnotism show. And he was talking about how when he first wanted to start doing magic and doing hypnotism and doing shows and stuff like that, he was a little kid and he totally froze up and was like, I know how to do these tricks, but like couldn't do them if there was a bunch of people there. And so he started thinking about it as baby steps, but like up a ladder. So it's like the first baby step, you really only have to go up one step. And then like once you're already up that one step, it's just like another one step. And like that the whole ladder doesn't, like looking at at the giant ladder at once is really overwhelming. But once you are on the second step, then the third step doesn't look so bad because it's really still just one little step. And I like that. when the shows link together like that, when people kind of talk about similar things, but in different ways. I love these 5 questions. It's always so interesting to hear people's stories and how people answer them. Some people are like really existential in their answers, and other people are like, oh, I got to drink coffee every day. It's just funny.
Oh, man.
Okay, number 4. What one trait or habit is most responsible for keeping you on track?
Oh, I'm still trying to figure that one out.
Teamwork.
Okay, teamwork.
We got to balance each other out. We have different strengths. We do different things.
That's true.
Neither of us would be in this place, especially our business, if it wasn't for both of us working together. Because I can't I freeze up sometimes when it comes to things, and you know.
I like to brainstorm. I'm the brainstorm person. There is a storm constantly happening in here, always, and so I'm sure you understand. Have many ideas. You want ideas? I got ideas. I will give you ideas for days. But then it's the execution, and so he's quite good at execution and figuring out what's possible and what's not possible, and I like to write. Oh, yeah, he likes that part.
And Z is really good at talking to people and caring about people.
Yes.
Yeah. And other things too, and building. That's right. And having like a really good head on your shoulders. Yeah, you're kind of like the glue that keeps like our family units all working and running. You were the glue that keeps us together, and the WD-40 that keeps us, kind of running.
But as far as like what the question was asking, like, what is the thing that is that helps you keep going, right? Like,
that keeps you on track. Like some habit that you have every day or every week, like something that you like make sure to always do that because it keeps you sane or whatever.
I'm trying to develop that right now, honestly. I just got myself a planner. I was inspired by the bullet journal movement, but I felt like it was too much. I got overwhelmed by the by the organization of it all. So I did buy a cute journal with some Disney princesses on it, and I've been enjoying making time for myself. And this is just for the last 3 days. So check in a month and a half, and we'll see if I'm actually still doing this. But for 3 days so far, I've been getting some things done and like trying to wake up at the same time each morning, and that's been helpful. So,
good for you.
Yeah. See, I'm trying to.
I've been noticing
be better. So,
he's trying to get a morning routine, which is tough if you're not a morning person.
No, it's the worst, but I know that it's the right thing to do. That's the thing. Is it's like you can know things that are the right choice, but then actually doing it is sometimes the hardest. So I'm really trying.
Yeah, I'm definitely not a morning person at all, and I'm pretty sure that all of my kids' classmates have seen me in my fluffy pink robe with my bed hair in the background of the Zoom, like, care not, drinking my coffee.
Oh,
like both Chad and his dad wake up super early. And so like lately they've been seeing me up early-ish, and they're like, good morning. And I don't like to talk in the morning until I absolutely have to. So I just wave. They smile.
Speaking of fluffy pink robes on Zoom, let me tell you, because I've done so many Zoom shows, I've seen kids trained to pick up a sheet and hold it over the camera so that their parents can change. Like it is a thing. The parents is like, I'm doing something. I don't want people to cover the camera. Whoever, like little kid, and the kids just be like, okay. I was surprised the first time I saw it because there was some partial nudity happening in the background. The kids were like, okay, whatever. I was like, wow, it's such a routine for them to hold up the sheet in front of the camera.
You'd think that the parent would like know enough and then move away from the camera.
Sometimes you can't.
You don't have space for that. Like if you're living in a one-room apartment or something, yeah, you don't have the space to do that.
I'd be like, at least you got a bathroom door.
Oh, yeah, I guess. I don't know. Or unless it's occupied.
I don't know the situation. I'm not judging. I just thought it was just like, oh, well, all right, here we go.
Yeah. I have a friend of mine when her kid first started doing virtual school who thought the iPad wasn't working and like brought it into the bathroom to ask her how to fix it. And she was like, it's working. Oh, man. So, yeah, it's been interesting. But okay, number 5.
Q5.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever gotten, and what advice would you give other people?
I got this one. It's from, well, maybe we both have advice, but this is the one that I always go to. The first, it's from my puppet teacher, Bart Rocco Burton, from UConn. And I came into school. My first year was the hardest because I felt very in over my head. I was in grad school amongst like 4 or 5 other people who were extremely accomplished. And here I was, some like computer theater-ish kid who kind of just got in. And I mean, like, I know that they saw promise in me, and I know that there was a reason that they said yes, but I had no background in puppetry. And so I was definitely like, holy moly, what is happening? Like, I'm in over my head. All these people are super experienced. And I tried my hardest, especially in marionette class, which was extremely challenging to learn how to carve wood and then perform these things. And my first marionette, I had left it on my desk that night and gone home and went to sleep. And when I came in the morning, there was a note from Bart, and it said, keep going. And I was like, okay. And I've kept that note ever since because, you know, he was right. That you can't just stop. You have to keep going. And even when it's feeling like things aren't working, then you just change the direction. You know, you try something else, but you can't just stop and be stymied by the frustration or whatever it is that's making you have a gray rain cloud. And I struggle with my own personal gray rain cloud sometimes. And I think that because it's such a simple phrase for me, that it becomes a bit of a mantra in my head, just to keep going. So that's for me. What is your?
Yay! That's great. That's very inspirational.
I love it. You guys are so cute. Aw.
She said we're cute.
I'm applauding the both of you for not hating each other by this point in the pandemic.
No, we learn. We I think, like, you know, when you're stuck together in an elevator with somebody, you know, even if you were annoyed by them in some way, you come out with greater understanding. I feel like we're coming out of this way stronger and knowing a lot more about each other. And in just being in each other's business all the time, I feel like, like our relationship is super solid, and I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, and also we've been giving each other space too, and that's what's nice about the house is like there's like little spaces, tiny hideouts. And our apartment also had tiny hideouts, but you always kind of know what everybody is doing all the time because it is so small. Whereas here, there are doors. There's a lot more doors. But I think that everybody, and our kids included, deserve a big hug and thank you at the end of this for just like making it this far. And we're recording this on New Year's Eve. I don't know when it will be released, but it feels quite auspicious. And so we're hopeful for a really bright 2021 and to be able to return back to our New York City home then. So
you just reminded me, I got to go build that fire.
Yeah, that's our tradition.
Yeah.
The New Year's Eve bonfire. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no idea what we're going to do. I saw this thing the other day that was just like, I haven't decided what I'm going to wear to New Year's Eve in the living room. I'm not even sure if I'm going to go.
Nice.
So yeah, the pandemic has been really eye-opening for me. Like you were talking about processing your trauma with it. And I think the pandemic has been forcing me to process a lot of trauma from like way, way back in my life, and like generational trauma and like my mother's life and all sorts of stuff like that. So it's been weird for me to like, when the way that I grew up, my parents were married to other people when I was born. So I've always been part of 3 different families. So I lived at my mom's house 5 days a week. And then I lived at my legal dad's house 2 days a week, or a day and a night. And then at my other dad's house for a day and a night. And I never really realized how having 3 different families, like 3 different houses, and that I wasn't around any of my family members 100% of the time until I got together with Brian. And it, you know, before the pandemic, when I was still like free to move about in the world and like be extroverted with people, it wasn't as apparent. But now that I can't do that, it makes me really crazy to be around the same people 100% of the time. Like it's difficult for me not to just like physically run away and be like, I have to go live in somebody else's house for a little while or something. Like it's been a lot of just thinking about how our childhoods were so different and how it has made us very different people as adults. And so I've been kind of struggling with a lot of that kind of stuff in my own head. And he's like, why don't you want to hang out with us? I'm like, I gotta go. Like, I can't.
Word.
So it's been interesting. So it's nice to see other perspectives of people who are like, it's cool, we figured it out.
I mean, I feel like you have to, you know, or you just go insane. So there's really no option. You have to. If you've been putting off things in your relationship, like he's kicking that can down the road, it's like, well, the can has come home to roost.
Yeah.
Or something. Or something. But, yeah.
Every show I try to think of like what I would pick as the title or something like that, and or what's like a kind of a standalone quote that sort of comes out of it, and be like, the can has come home to roost. It's like I like oh man. So we could talk all day, but I don't have all day because childcare. So can you tell everyone where they can find you guys on the interwebs?
Yeah, so our company is Wonderspark Puppets. You can go to wondersparkpuppets.com to see video and photos of all of our cute puppets in action. We also run a podcast, a weekly podcast that we record at Sundays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time called the Puppet Parent Podcast. And that's over at puppetparentpodcast.com. You can find those MP3s wherever you find your MP3s, but also over at the website.
Cool. You guys are on Facebook and Instagram.
Oh, yeah. We do a lot of stuff on Facebook. And so Wonderspark Puppets on Facebook and Instagram. And I think Twitter, we do exist there.
No, I mean, technically, we're not on TikTok because we want the people who we want to find are parents. So
we haven't invested the time into TikTok yet.
We're not on any place where young people hang out because they're
not yet.
We're the parents. The parents are on Facebook and the parents are on Pinterest. You should be on.
Yeah,
Pinterest.
That's right.
True.
All right, well, thank you so much, Shauna.
Thank you.
Thank you for being on the show.
Bye-bye.
Bye. So good to see you guys. And so you've been on the Reach the Stars podcast. I've been your host, John Willoughby Lore, and Z and Chad.
Yesterday was Ruby's birthday.
It's Alice's birthday. Yes, you're right.
Now she's the same age as me.
That's right. Cousins. His cousin. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I love this show. You know, like most people, like they think their show has to be like so, you know, professional and perfect. I'm like, no, totally. Give me a show where there's like a kid chilling in it. I love it. Yeah. We'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Single interaction has the power to change your life forever. This is a place for the stories of those moments. Stories of pursuing dreams, overcoming tragedy and failure, of coming back to life after so much of what feels like dying, of continuing on with only a vision as a map. This is the place where those moments live on. Come sit by the fire, look up at the stars, and be forever changed too.
Thank you for being with us on the Reach the Stars podcast. Our theme music is generously provided by Byrocratic. You can find him on bandcamp.com. Thank you to all of our current patrons, guests, and everyone else who helps make this dream a reality. We are so proud to be building this amazing community with all of you. If you love this podcast, please consider sharing with a friend, leaving a review on iTunes, and becoming a patron at www.patreon.com/reachthestars. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel to see the videos of these conversations. We'll see you next week. In the meantime, do something cool and tell us about it.